Hi, favorite teacher. I'm Tori from Next Day Teaching, where I give you classroom management tips and strategies that you can use tomorrow. Today, I want to share my 5 favorite activities that help students build critical thinking skills. Now, first, a disclaimer. The links in the description are affiliate links. As an Amazon associate, I earn from qualifying purchases. But I want you to know that I only recommend resources that I have personally used in the classroom, as you'll see today. Let's get started. The first resource I want to recommend is Perplexers. Now, this is a product line. Like, you can just search up Perplexers and it'll come up with, like, I don't know, something like 15 different versions. This particular one is level B, which is suitable for ages 10 to 12. But I used it for 8th graders because they needed a little bit more practice with those critical thinking skills, with those logic skills, before we went on to the ones that were technically geared for their age. So I'd recommend level B unless your students are really young or really need to build up their critical thinking skills. Then start with level A or even the basic level, which is before that. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So if you've ever done or seen those grid logic puzzles, this is similar, but it's a lot less overwhelming. So the actual puzzles are just the solutions for each column, each category. You don't need to actually go across and down and figure out which matches what, that sort of thing. It's way less visually overwhelming. These are perfect when I needed a quick activity, no prep, just make a few copies for a few students who finished early, or especially if I had to step out for an IEP meeting and a sub came into the room. I just give the whole class a Perplexer. They already were trained on how to solve them, and the sub just stood there and supervised. Like grid logic puzzles, Perplexers rely on deductive reasoning, process of elimination, good old-fashioned logic, all these skills that it's really hard to teach without experiencing. Now, I would recommend that you do the first few underneath the document camera or project it in some way or do it together. Make sure every student is actually doing the work with you. Talk through how you're solving them, because this is not a natural way to think. Students need to be taught how to think like this. So show it, model it, do it over and over and over again to teach students the process behind this before just letting them go off freely on their own. But once students understand the process, it's a wonderful, no prep, again, just make the copies activity. In fact, I like these so much that I'm going to record a whole other video walking you through how to teach them how to do them. So stay tuned, check back and see if I've published that. Now, anecdotally, I did see a connection when I was teaching Perplexers, and I saw students increase their test scores and increase the quality of their argumentation, their argumentative reasoning. I don't have any hard evidence to back that up, but I have seen it over and over. Every year that I did Perplexers, I saw that boost in both of those skills. So might be something to it. Now, lateral thinking puzzlers are best for if you have a small group of students who finish early, or you can do this whole class. So the way it works is you read a short scenario. They're all really short. And it seems pretty straightforward, but there's a twist. And students have to ask yes or no questions to eliminate certain parts or certain scenarios or certain situations in order to arrive at the solution. This is another one that's my favorite. I'll record another video walking you through it. Couple of things to note though. This particular book and the one that's linked in the description, they're older, so you might not find this exact book, but Paul Sloan is the author. I recommend any of his lateral thinking books. There are a ton of others on Amazon. I'm just not recommending them because I haven't personally used them. But if you want to take that risk and get a different one that's not by Paul Sloan, certainly I'm not going to stop you. Also, because this particular book was written a long time ago, it uses some impolite words that we wouldn't use today. It uses some outdated terms, some things that students might not naturally expect, like older telephones, like landline phones. I think this one might even have like rotary phone references, something like that, or like car radios, just things that we don't usually use today. So make sure that you preview each puzzle. Also, a surprising number of them have to do with the main characters dying in some way, and then like the puzzle is figuring out how. Depending on your school, you might want to stay away from any of them that deal with death. I usually didn't read those in the classroom just because I'm overly cautious like that. But once students know how to do these, it can be really powerful to put a small group of students together and then hand the book to one of them. My 8th graders absolutely loved being the one in charge, being the one who knew the hints, who knew the solution, because this book, it does give you hints for when they inevitably get stuck. And just like being the one with all the power. So once they know how it works, once they know the process, let them run it themselves, give them that responsibility. Now, if your students are younger, or if you want just a little bit more kid-friendly puzzles, or if you want just more puzzles, 1 minute mind-boggling 1-minute mysteries and brain teasers. It's by Sandy Silverthorne and John Warner. Highly recommend. Like I said, it's a little bit more kid-friendly. It's a little bit younger audience, but it still has the same puzzle, very short puzzle. There's a glare there. There we go. Very short puzzle. It's got clues, and then it's got the solutions. So both this book and the Lateral Thinking Puzzlers book, they teach students not to jump to conclusions, because inevitably students think they know the answer, so they start shouting it out, but the answer is wrong. In fact, I've only had one class get it right on the first try, and it was truly just a blind guess. So they teach students to eliminate categories. They teach students to think in different ways, to think sideways. That's what lateral means. Students have to collect the evidence first, then arrive at a solution. So it slows them down. And that itself is a whole process that you have to get through. Don't expect them to just automatically know how to do it, because again, this isn't natural. This isn't the way that we want to think, because it's hard. So I highly recommend this one too. Especially if you've got like awkward time gaps between, let's say, like an assembly ends and like they're not supposed to go to their next class or to lunch or to recess for like, I don't know, 12 minutes. Like, what are you supposed to do besides make up missing work or read a book? Like, these are great to pull out during those times. This next book is technically called 25 Quick Formative Assessments for a Differentiated Classroom. Very amazing title, I know. It's published by Scholastic, but don't be fooled by the title, both the fact that it says assessments and the fact that it sounds super long and dry. This is an awesome set of activities for your fast finishers who are really good at doing the work, at getting the right answer and stopping. They don't go any further. So a lot of extension activities or enrichment activities ask students, go add more detail, or go draw a picture, color in all the white space, that sort of thing. Like, those are my go-tos. This book asks them to actually take the content to another level. So one of my favorite pages, if I can find it here. See, I could have just gone to the table of contents, but then you would miss out on me flipping through. Here we go. So it's called My Textbook Page. Now, the ones that they have in this book are for social studies and math. But you can easily adapt this to any subject, or even a specials or exploratory class, pretty easily. So there are 6 boxes. There's the description or summary of the topic. That's pretty straightforward. Most students, especially your fast finishers, are able to do that pretty quickly. Then there's either key vocabulary terms or examples or step-by-step instructions. Okay, so now we're taking this big concept and we're breaking it down into smaller pieces. We've got to make some judgments. And then there's hints or tips, keep in mind, remember to. Now we're again funneling that knowledge even further. The most important things to understand about this concept, we're making judgments. Out of all of this knowledge that we've collected, this is the most important thing. How this concept relates to other concepts we've studied. So now we're broadening, now we're connecting between concepts. And that's just the math page. So the social studies page also talks about like important historical figures, their contributions, historical developments, key events, geography, economy, achievements. So again, helping them bridge that gap between what we just learned and what we already know. That's a piece that many students don't automatically do on their own. Again, because it's hard. Now, I said, don't be fooled by the title. Just because it says assessments doesn't mean you need to treat it like a test. You don't even need to grade it. I've done these with individual fast finishers, like I described, who were really good at getting the right answer, at doing the work, but never really went beyond that. I've also done it with small groups. And I've done it whole class where everybody gets the my textbook page and we all work on it. I found the most success when students were able to work in groups, because all of these activities, there's I don't want to say there's not right and wrong, because like obviously if you're writing about poetry terms for the math textbook, that's wrong. But it's more degrees of correctness. So like someone who really struggles with just getting the basic concept, like, I don't know, let's take double-digit multiplication. Someone who really struggles with double-digit multiplication, they might say that one of the steps is addition. Great, you write the word addition there, 5 stars for you, buddy. Whereas someone else who's more advanced, they might say, make sure that you add the zero, whatever you call that empty zero on the second line of double digit multiplication, and then add up all of your numbers in columns. Don't forget to regroup and carry and all of that. So the level of detail, the level of complexity of the thinking can be adjusted, and that's, what makes it differentiated. Now, when you put the students in groups, they're going to be exposed to other types of thinking, other degrees of correctness, if you will. So it's less about me getting it right and more about all of us collaborating, this small group working together to figure out what's the best way to say this. Now, along those lines, these activities will take longer than you think they will. So like you look at that math textbook page and you're like, oh, it's just 6 little boxes. They can totally do that in a class period, right? No, plan on like 3 class periods, especially if you've never taught the format before, and especially if they're not used to having those high expectations of not just regurgitation, not just recitation, but actually applying the learning and making something new, making judgments, expanding, contracting their knowledge. But I will say that these finished products make really great display pieces. So if you need something for a bulletin board or a student portfolio, this is going to help you not only have some critical thinking extension activities in the classroom, but also display their work to the world. One other note, this particular book, this exact one that I'm holding here, is older. In fact, it's so old that it has a CD in the cover. Isn't that cute? There is a second edition of the book. That's the one that I linked below. I haven't personally used that book, but again, that proves that these activities are timeless. It's, buy it once and use it forever or until you retire, whichever comes first. So they're really valuable. And then the last activity that I want to talk to you about is the book, The Mysteries of Harris Burdick by Chris Van Allsburg. Chris Van Allsburg is a pretty famous children's author. He also wrote The Polar Express. You probably know that one. So The Mysteries of Harris Burdick is perfect for creative students or for students who don't think they're creative. It's a way to get students thinking, to get them creating, rather than just consuming, which hey, critical thinking's got to start somewhere, right? Creativity a lot of times is sort of pushed aside in schools. At least my experience. Maybe your school is different, in which case, awesome, you're at a great place. But creativity is subjective. It's hard to teach. It's even harder to assess. And a lot of times it ends up not being focused or featured in most curriculum guides. So when you have students who are creative and who would much rather write or draw or imagine in class, a lot of times they feel pushed aside or ignored, often unintentionally. This is not at all your fault. It's not even your admin's fault. It's just the way that the curriculum cycle is these days. But if you've got some extra time, or if you've got those early finishers and you know they're creative, or they could be creative, or you want them to be creative, this is a fabulous start. So what it is 14 different illustrations, gorgeous illustrations. Each illustration has can't see it, but there's a title and a caption that goes with it. But there's no story. The students have to come up with the story. They have to create what is happening in this picture. Now, of course, you'll get some students who just look at this picture and they take it very literally. You know, there's two kids on the beach and they're skipping stones in the water and the water is sparkling and it's a beautiful summer day, the end. But you've got other students who are going to look at the title, A Strange Day in July, look at the caption, he threw with all his might, but the third stone kept skipping back, and poof, their imagination is going to go out and just, have a field trip all by itself, because they're going to be wondering, what's the story behind this picture? What else can I tell about it? So I hope you were able to get at least one useful resource today for critical thinking and fast finishing students. I'm curious too, what are your go-to early finisher activities? What did I leave off? What would you add to the list? Go ahead and leave me a comment. Check out those links. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and consider subscribing. I hope you have calm transitions and quiet hallways.